If there's one thing in life that you're never going to be able to avoid, it's finance. What does finance mean? Well, it's just stuff to do with money. And fortunately for us, as brilliant mathematicians, we can apply math to money. And sometimes it can get really, really complicated. But to start off, we're going to keep it simple. Let's talk about interest. Interest has different meanings. In finance, when we say interest, what we actually mean is rent. What is rent? So for example, if you live in my house, then you will pay rent to me. So it's money that you pay in exchange for the use of something else. Now, interest is the particular type of rent that you pay somebody in exchange for the use of their money. So you are either receiving interest or you are paying interest. So receiving interest is money that is paid to you in exchange for the use of your money. So an example of that could be interest on your savings account at the bank. So you put some money in the bank and every month they're going to give you a certain percentage of that money back simply because you've allowed them to use your money. And if you're receiving interest, that's generally something that you're going to be happy about. Alternatively, you could be paying interest. So that is money that you pay in exchange for the use of somebody else's money. An example of that could be interest you pay on a loan that you took out to buy a house. And if you're paying interest, well, generally that's something you're not going to be that happy about. There's some terminology that we need to understand before we can look at a mathematical approach to interest. The first thing is interest rate. The interest rate is the price that you pay in exchange for the use of money, and it is expressed as a percentage of the money being used. And the symbol for that is going to be I. Then we've got the time period. And the time period is the number of times that interest is charged. And that we are going to use the symbol N for. Then there's the principal amount. And that is the sum of money put into the investment at the start, or the amount of money taken out at the start of a loan. So it's the amount at the start, and we're going to use P for that. And then we've got the accumulated amount. And that is the principal amount plus any interest charged or earned. And we are going to use A for that. So let's talk about simple interest. Simple interest is always calculated on the principal amount only. Let's see what that means. Ntombi deposits 1,000 Rand in a bank account at a simple interest rate of 8% per annum. How much money is in the bank account after 3 years? Well, we're going to use a table to see if we can come up with an answer here. So, at the start of the first year, she has 1,000 Rand in the account. The annual interest calculation is to take that 1,000 Rand and to multiply it by the interest rate, which is 8%. And remember, 8% is a fraction. 8 divided by 100, or as a decimal, 0.08. So 1,000 times 8% is 80 Rand. So the rent that Ntombi receives for the use of her money is 80 Rand for the duration of that year. So the amount that is in the account at the end of the year is the amount at the start plus the interest that she has earned. So she has 1,080 Rand at the end of year 1. Now, the money she has at the start of year 2 is the same that she had at the end of year 1, 1,080. And then for year 2, we must again calculate the interest that she earns. But because it is simple interest, we calculate the interest on the principal amount only. And that is the 1,000 Rand that she put in at the start. So the annual interest calculation is again 1,000 Rand times 8%. And she, in year 2, again only earns 80 Rands worth of interest. So at the end of year 2, she's got 1,160 Rand in the account. And then again at the start of year 3, she's got 1,160. For year 3, it's the same interest calculation, the principal times 8%. She earns 80 Rands worth of interest in year 3, and at the end of the year, she has 1,240 Rand. Now, what's very, very important here is that the annual interest is always the same for simple interest. So the amount in the account is going to grow by the same amount each year because she's receiving the same amount each year. Now, let's see if we can find a formula. So we understand that the investment increases by the same amount each year. So if we are going to put this on a graph where N is the time period and the accumulated amount is going to be on the y-axis, we will see that we actually end up with a linear trend. So simple interest will always grow linearly because you increase by the same amount each year. And the formula for simple interest is A, the accumulated amount, is equal to P, the principal amount, times 1 plus I times N. So let's see how to use that in Ntombi's example. Maybe we can find the accumulated amount much quicker than having to do that entire table. So, how much money is in the account after 3 years? Well, now we've got our formula, A equals P, 1 plus I N, and we know that P is the 1,000 Rand. We also know that I, the interest rate, is 8% per annum. And we know that the time period is going to be 3 years, and that is going to be N. So once we substitute that in and we calculate it, we find that she is going to have 1,240 Rand in the account after the end of the 3rd year. And that agrees exactly with what we calculated when we went through the whole table approach. Let's do another example. Patrick is a hipster. He decides to buy a turntable on a hire purchase loan. The turntable's price is 3,500 Rand and interest is charged at 12% per annum. He is required to make equal payments on a monthly basis over 4 years period. So, question 1, what on earth is a turntable? Right? So that thing you see over there is a turntable, and it's how our grandparents used to listen to music before MP3 players and Spotify and that sort of thing. So let's see here. The first question, how much does Patrick end up paying for the turntable? How much interest does he pay? And what amount does he have to repay every month over that 4-year period? So answering question A, how much does Patrick end up paying for the turntable? Well, this is a simple interest calculation. So very important is that when we see the words hire purchase, that always means simple interest. And what a hire purchase agreement is essentially you hire the thing, so you pay for it monthly, but as soon as you've paid enough money, you become the owner. So you hire in order to purchase it. But anyway, so we've got to identify what is P, what is I, what is N. So we find that the P, the principal amount, has to be the 3,500 Rand. That's how much the turntable cost at the start. The interest is 12% and the period is for 4 years. So if we put that into the formula, we get 5,180. So it turns out that Patrick paid 5,180 in total for the turntable. So then, how much interest does he pay? Now, the interest that you pay is always going to be the accumulated amount minus the principal amount, right? Because we said that the accumulated amount is the principal amount plus any interest. So the accumulated amount we found to be 5,180, and we have to minus the 3,500, that is the original price of the turntable, and it turns out that Patrick paid 1,680 rands worth of interest. Then, what amount does he repay every month? So, in order to calculate this, we have to say, well, he has to repay 5,180 rand in total. And in order to find the monthly payment, we have to take the total and divide it by the number of monthly payments that he has to make. So that's the 5,180. And because he's making payments for 4 years and there's 12 months in every year, the number of monthly payments is going to be 4 times 12. And it turns out that he has to pay 107 rand and 92 cents every month for 4 years in order to purchase that turntable on a hire purchase agreement. So let's summarize what we just learned. Simple interest is always calculated on the principal amount only. And if you were to graph the accumulated amount over time, you would find that it grows linearly. And the formula for simple interest is A equals P times 1 plus I times N, where A is the accumulated amount. P is the principal amount, the amount you put into the account at the start. I is the interest rate, and N is the number of periods over which interest is calculated. So there you have it. For once, the name means exactly what it says. Simple interest is simple. And the only thing that's complicated about it is that we hardly ever use it in the real world. For that, you've got to look to compound interest. But you know what? Enjoy a bit of simplicity while it lasts.